On February 21, 1848, an elderly representative stood up to protest a resolution on the floor of the House and suddenly collapsed. That dying congressman was John Quincy Adams, the sixth president of the United States. Today, former presidents routinely exit public life to write memoirs and oversee foundations. Adams took a different path, serving 9 back-to-back terms in the House over 17 years. Before his presidency, he was arguably the most qualified executive candidate in American history, a brilliant diplomat fluent in 5 languages who had successfully negotiated the end of the War of 1812. His time in the Oval Office, however, was a political disaster. To understand why he fought so relentlessly in his final days, we have to examine the spectacular failure that nearly destroyed his career. The 1824 election ended in a bitter 4-way deadlock. Andrew Jackson won the most popular and electoral votes, but he fell short of the absolute majority required to secure the presidency outright. According to the 12th Amendment of the Constitution, this scenario triggers a contingent election, handing the final decision to the House of Representatives to choose from the top candidates. Speaker of the House Henry Clay used his considerable influence to back Adams, securing him the victory on the first ballot. Days later, Adams named Clay as his Secretary of State. Jackson's supporters immediately retaliated. They branded the arrangement a corrupt bargain, accusing Adams of buying the presidency with a cabinet appointment. The accusation stuck. From his very first day in office, a shadow of illegitimacy hung over his administration. Jackson and his allies spent the next 4 years organizing a relentless opposition. Adams found himself paralyzed by ruthless partisan warfare that he stubbornly refused to participate in. Instead of engaging in political warfare, Adams focused on the American system, a massive domestic agenda intended to build an interconnected, prosperous national economy. He asked Congress to fund a sprawling network of national roads, regional canals, and a national university. But Southern legislators viewed this rapid expansion as a direct threat. They feared a central government powerful enough to build roads could eventually abolish slavery. Adams pushed even further into the sciences. He drafted ambitious proposals to establish a national system of astronomical observatories. His political enemies scoffed at the idea, mocking the proposed scientific outposts as useless lighthouses of the skies. Blocked at every turn by an obstructionist Congress, he faced a vicious, mudslinging rematch against Andrew Jackson in 1828. Jackson won in a landslide, leaving Adams a humiliated one-term president, following the exact fate of his father. His intellectual brilliance proved entirely ineffective against the rise of Jacksonian populism. His sprawling plans for infrastructure and education remained unbuilt blueprints. Rather than retreating to a quiet retirement, Adams pivoted. Just 2 years after his devastating presidential defeat, he ran for a local Massachusetts House seat and won. Stripped of the executive burden, he no longer had to build fragile national coalitions. He focused his immense intellect on specific legislation, transforming into a highly effective crusader on the House floor. When a massive $500,000 bequest arrived from a British chemist named James Smithson, politicians bickered over the funds. Adams spent years fighting to secure the money, ultimately using it to establish the Smithsonian Institution. The very man who had been ridiculed for wanting to build lighthouses of the skies had successfully forced the federal government to invest in the advancement of science. In his final years, he took on his most dangerous political target. He became Congress's loudest critic of the Slavocracy, the powerful Southern voting bloc determined to protect the institution of slavery. In 1841, he took this fight to the Supreme Court. Arguing the Amistad case, he delivered a theatrical defense that successfully won freedom for kidnapped Africans who had mutinied aboard a Spanish ship. This anti-slavery crusade drove him right to his final moments. He viewed the Mexican-American War as a thinly veiled land grab to expand slavery westward, and he was fiercely protesting a resolution celebrating that war on the day he collapsed. His failure to command the presidency forced him to find a more precise, impactful way to wield his political influence from the legislative floor. John Quincy Adams demonstrated that the highest office does not guarantee the greatest impact. By spending his final 17 years fighting in the legislative trenches, he proved that true leadership requires an uncompromising, lifelong commitment to the Republic.